A growing chorus of current and senior former military officials, including two former CENTCOM commanders, appearing to question the White House strategy on ISIS. You're looking at the pictures of just a few of them, and you know their names and their faces. They are urging President Obama to leave his options open regarding boots on the ground, something the president has repeatedly ruled out. Let's bring in Katie McFarland. She's a Fox News national security analyst and a former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense who served in the Reagan administration and others as well. We're talking about some very senior officials. Have you ever seen such a thing, a split between senior military and the president?
No, and it's not just retired senior military, it's current senior military splitting with the president. I think what the president's done is he's given them the mission: degrade and defeat ISIS. But he's made it mission impossible. Why? Because he said no U.S. boots on the ground. So we're supposed to use other boots on the ground, except those aren't going to show up. He said, okay, we're going to train and equip and field a Syrian rebel army of moderate Syrians. We haven't even found those guys yet. Secondly, we're going to use the Iraqi forces are going to be the boots on the ground. Well, the Defense Department has even said 50% of them aren't ready for combat.
And look, you know, we talked to General Petraeus previously, yes, and he had said it takes 5 years to train up an army. That was 10 years ago.
Right, exactly.
And they still haven't done it yet. They haven't done it in that time that they had hoped to. Why are they going to do it now? You bring up an interesting third topic, and that is something that we haven't focused on a lot. That is Iran. You say one option is get Iran in there to do the work, but they helped create the problem in the first place.
Exactly. Now, one of the things the president said is, well, we're going to have this coalition. All right, well, the coalition specifically isn't going to include Syria, and it's not going to include Iran. That's what the Secretary of State has said. The problem is, if there's no other boots on the ground, if it's not going to be the Syrians, it's probably not going to be the Iraqis, it's certainly not going to be the Americans, what are we going to do in a couple of months' time when this doesn't work? We're going to have three options. One, we're either going to walk away, which means we're not going to defeat and destroy ISIS, or we're going to escalate heavily, U.S. boots on the ground, and not just a couple hundred, but many thousand, or we're going to turn to Iran and say, how can you help us do this?
And how would that work? What would they do?
And here's what. They are not going to do this for nothing. Now, the threat to ISIS is a threat to them as well, but if they feel that they're going to bail out the United States, my guess is they're going to ask for something in return. And what
nuclear negotiations?
Nuclear negotiations. You got it right on the head. It's Iran wants a nuclear weapons program. We're trying to stop that program. There are negotiations next week about that program. And if Iran ends up bailing us out, my guess is it will be with the understanding that the United States lets them develop nuclear weapons.
You know, some folks watching this might think that that seems like a somewhat far-fetched scenario. Why is it not?
Well, if you look at the moving parts of this, the president says defeat, destroy, degrade, all of that of ISIS, but I don't see how it happens, because there is not going to be a Syrian army that's going to fight ISIS in Syria, not anytime soon, as you've just pointed out.
Well, we can train 5,000 at a time. How do you take on 30,000 in ISIS? How do you take on 30?
And then the Iraqi army, which we're going to rely on. Well, the first time they came up against ISIS, they dropped their weapons, took off their uniforms, ran away and hid. Yeah. And so we're now going to all of a sudden rely on them. And then finally, this coalition. Well, the coalition isn't forming. Now, part of that may be they're looking at the United States and seeing reluctance, ambivalence. Why should we step up if America hasn't? But Turkey hasn't stepped up. Saudi Arabia may let us have bases there. They're not going to fight. Egypt hasn't stepped up with fight. We need somebody's boots on the ground. If it's not going to be an American, if it's not going to be theirs, my guess is out of desperation we'll turn to Iran. And in the end of the day, Heather, Iran, a nuclear Iran, is the bigger strategic threat to the United States, even than ISIS.
Well, our folks at the Pentagon were talking about this Iranian component earlier this week. So we know it is, in fact, being talked about at the Pentagon. What they choose to do, we just don't know yet. Katie McFarland, thanks so much, as always, for your expertise.